this is Pat, and I'm doing a viral demo again for you. We're going to be doing the octagon. Now you know that I do a lot of these. This is the octagon that we're going to work with today. Another one that we're going to work with today also is the poinsettia. Let me show you the finished product. That we have two sizes. I call this the small size, and this is the regular size. This is the autumn one that we're working on. You can also have any of that fabric. We still have that available. And this is the smaller size. Okay, let me show you how you do it. Come to me to the sewing machine. Now, as you know, I've made thousands and thousands of these, so it's not any problem. I have to cut here using the octagon, and if you wanted any kits, we ask you to come in and pick out the fabric, and I will cut the octagon for you, so you won't have to worry about that. You would need, for the inner border, 4 pieces 1.5 by 7 inches, 4 pieces 1.5 by 10 inches, and that is what we call the inner border. And that's what we're going to sew right now. And I'm going to put that down here, and off we go. And these go really fast. Takes maybe about 15 minutes or so, and all what we do is on the octagon, we sew on this. You see what I did right there? I sewed that down, and then you would go to the opposite side. You would skip one and go to the other side of the octagon and sew that down. See how fast we go? So we do 4 of these, 4 pieces, and then we'll end up going to the iron to iron it open, and then we go to the bigger piece. This is, I'm sewing right now, is a 7-inch, 1.5 by 7 inch long, and that's the beginning of our inner border. And here we go, almost done. And then we take it to the iron, and what you're going to do is iron this so that it opens. See what the size looks like now? And what we do is take the iron, and we iron that open on all 4. I don't know if you can see me do that. Yeah, there we go. And this is just the first step, okay? See how that is right there? Now you take your longer pieces of the inner border, which is the 10-inch length, still 1.5 wide, and you would sew that, lay it out so that you get it right to that point over to the other side. Just a little bit of 1/4 inch off of that. You don't need to pin, because if you keep the fabric straight, it will sew straight. And again, you would do all the other 4 sides to that. So there's number 1. I know you guys missed the demo, so I'm sure you can have fun watching this one. And then we do the other 2, and then you need to trim, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, see? All right, the last one we're doing. Now we take this off. Now before we do any pressing, we have some trimming to do. Now you see how the edging, the inner border is on the outer, okay? we have to trim that off before we do the ironing. So what we do is here, let me get a little closer. Can you see here now that what I'm doing? You turn around and just clip this here. Trim that off. And you go around the whole side and do that. And then we go back to the ironing. And we iron those open so that we're going to do the next layer. Now you see what you got there? Okay? You turn around, take the iron. I use steam, and you'll iron that back. Just fold it back and iron it. Fold it back and iron. See how that works? And then what we do, next step, we have to trim off the edges so that it comes to be the octagon. See what we have here? We have these extra edges pushing over there. What we do is we go to the cutting mat, we turn around and take a small ruler, this nice small ruler here, we lay it right on the edge there, line it up and trim. Of course, see that? How you trim that off? You would do that on all four sides. We'll get onto the regular mat so you can see it better. And then what we do is go back to the sewing machine and do the same to the outer border that we just did to the inner border. Okay? Now, the next border would be the larger 2.5 inches, and they would be 2.5 by 7 3/4, 2.5 by 13.5, the bigger ones. For what we do, just like we did in the beginning, we take this, and I always like to put the smaller pieces on top of each other, like the smaller border would go on that. And then you would turn around and do that again to all four sides. And you skip one in the middle, just like we did with the inner border. Now these work up super fast, as you can see. The longest is when the machine is cutting. That's what takes the most time. You could have sewn that right faster than that. See? All right, we got 2 sides done already. We got 2 more to go. And just like the one that we did the inner border, we will press these open and do our longer pieces next. I know Lisa's watching every move. She's going to be making some of these for herself, I know.
Oh, Pat. You're such an optimist.
Yes.
They're cute.
See, now you got the 4 sides done again, just like you did on the inner border. See, like that? We go and press these open. Now we don't do any trimming on this layer. We do it on the next longer strips. That's when we have to do the double trimming. See, now you've got those 4 done, just like you did with the inner border. Now we'll take the longer pieces, the 13.5 inch, again lay it across there. Now make sure that you do this so that you don't run out of material. See how you lay it across that way? Straight across. Again, you don't have to pin, just don't pull the material, and you can use that as a guide for your straight seam. See, there we for the other side. These make wonderful Christmas gift ideas. Some people use them as placemats. The smaller version does work nicely for a placemat. And I do have that. Also, if you needed us to cut those for you, I have the smaller ones. Let me know ahead of time because it's normally at home. Okay, there, see what it looks like? What you've just sewn on. Now, before you even open it up and use the iron, remember to trim these little ears off. 1, 2. Okay, and then we do the others. And then we go and we'll open them up and iron. See, there we go. Now let's go and press these open. Sometimes I press and stabilize the sewing seam that I made. But I'm trying to hurry here so that you don't get bored with me. Not that you could. Okay, now see that we press those open? And then we go back over here to the cutting area. And let's trim again, just like we did the last time. Lay the ruler right there so that we trim back those ears, as I call them, off. Okay, we're all done. Isn't that cool? Now, I want to give you some hints on quilting this. You can do most anything that you want in the quilting line. My little trick to do this is to turn around, take a batting piece, 22 inches square. Take a backing piece, which is whatever is going to be your backing, and this is what I've created right here is your backing piece, okay? You lay that face up, and then you would take your octagon that you just made and put it face down. And as you see, I've already done that with this. And pin, 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 pin all the way around the outside. Okay? Then what I would do is take one of the wider strips, that side, start sewing a little bit in from the edge. I started right here and sewed a 1/4 inch all the way around. All the way around. Get back to here because you have to leave an opening so that you can pull it out because it's like a sandwich. And then you stop part way there so that you can get your hand in that area to turn it inside out. Now, what I would do is before you turn around and trim it outside, take your scissors, fold back your batting, and trim it right tight. Don't cut your seam, but trim it tight to the seam. See how I'm cutting that? And you would do it all the way around. I cut the big pieces first. And I leave 2 pins in where I made my pocket so that I could turn it inside out. Because when I get to that area and I want to trim the batting back, I go back in a little bit and trim the batting back just a little bit, maybe 1/4 inch. You see how I clip that? And that's where I'm going to turn around and put it back together when we're done. Okay? Remember to do this on all sides. And then I'll show you what we do when we turn around and trim it. Now we've got that done. So what we do is turn around and we're going to trim the material. We put it on the back cutting. And what I do is I always start where I've got my pins, so that where I left that opening for turning, I turn around and I make the cut to trim that back. I always give an extra 1/4 inch there. That way, when I trim, I've got room to play with, to turn it inside out. Or right side out, I should say, right? I think I need a new blade, ladies and gentlemen. And I go around and I do all this. And I go right where my top is. I don't leave any extra. And I cut it all around. And the reason I trim the batting back a little tight to the sewing line is it's easier to turn. Okay, so that's done. One other little trick I do, I turn around and I take my scissors very carefully, clip it right back. Don't clip it too tight to the sewing line, but just a little bit, so you have less of a bulk there when you do your trimming. I'm sorry, when you do your turning rather, not trimming. And I go all the way around and do every one of those points. Just enough so that when you turn, you don't have that extra bulk there, even in the beginning. Then I take my pins out, and I stick my hand in there. Notice my hand fits right in there, so you leave enough room. And then you turn around, you pull it out like that. And then I have a turning tool. And this is one of the best ones we have. I'll tell you, nice and handy. It's nice and thick, you know, weight-wise, so it doesn't bend. And then I turn around, put my hands in there, go from point to point, take the turning tool, and just make sure that the points come out. And then I would take it to the iron and press it. Make sure that it's pressed pretty good. And then I use the seam and steam tape, or you could use whatever you want to close it. If you want to sew it, you can. Personally, I like just to put a little steam and seam, turn it in, side out, so I have less sewing to do on the top. There you go. Isn't that pretty? And what I do is I just turn this in a little bit like that. You see how I folded that in? And then put my steam seam there. And then one thing that I do, and I've done on all of these, is I turn around and I sew just all the way around. And you can see in the back, I just have that one seam. And you can do as much quilting or as much sewing that you want to put together. So that's it. Now, I do have a few things I want to show you that I've been working on. As you know, I cannot be without working. We got a nice panel in, covered bridges. Okay, so I made the panel has 8 blocks. So I made 4 placemats with 4 of the blocks differently. See how they came out? Then I took that panel. I still have, don't forget now, I got 4 blocks left. And I made 2 pot holders. And then with the leftovers, I actually put some of the fabric on a towel and made a design there. So that's called the covered bridge placemat. We have that panel and the corresponding fabrics to go with that. One other thing I worked on, this was a new panel that came in. I called it the old red truck. So I added Christmas fabrics around the outside, black fabric and the Christmas fabric, and made that panel. So this ends up to be 35 wide and about 53 long. So that's two of the things that we've done with panels. Okay, I'm done. How about you? Thanks for listening.